What's up, guys? It's Coach Matt over at Elite Throws Coaching and Primal Athlete Training Center, giving you another video analysis today. And here we have Elijah. So Elijah is a glide shot putter. Sent in an email to me saying he's throwing about 41 feet. But one of the issues that he has is that he normally peaks in the middle of the season, and then toward the end of the season, his throws start to go down. So I wanted to first and foremost talk about the peaking issue. Peaking is something that is extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? Finicky, I guess would be a good way of saying it, because peaking does not just depend on one thing. Excuse me. Peaking depends on a lot of different things. There's a lot of ingredients that go into peaking. So, number one is your form and technique. You can have the perfect physical training program, plenty of rest, plenty of good food, perfect weather, perfect training environment. All that stuff could be absolutely perfect. But if your form and technique starts to fall apart and you start to develop a lot of bad habits with your form and technique, a good peaking program doesn't mean shit, to be quite honest with you. I could have the best peaking program in the world for a high school athlete, and if that athlete, ends up getting sick 2 weeks before the state meet or 2 weeks before the big meet that we've been peaking for, it's not going to make one iota of difference because that's going to screw everything up. So there's a lot that goes into peaking. But I will say this, peaking, taking everything else out of the equation, taking out your form and technique, taking out things like sickness or school vacation or a lot of makeup meets that prevent you from getting in the circle or prevent you from practicing or getting in the weight room. Taking all of that out of the equation, okay, peaking is extremely weighted or based on your physical capabilities. What I mean by that is, say for example, you are just grossly out of shape. It looks like here you're a big, strong kid. You're a sophomore in high school. Keep doing what you're doing, man. It looks like it's working. But say you're grossly out of shape. It's going to be very, very hard for you to peak at the end of the year. Say you have not done any off-season training, any off-season lifting, any conditioning. You've just sat on your butt for 7-8 months and then decided, I'm going to do indoor track again after not doing anything. It's going to be very hard to peak. It really is a culmination of everything that you have been doing throughout the year and everything that you have been doing leading up to this. So it's hard to say why you are peaking in the middle of the season. I don't know other sports that you do. I don't know weight training routines. It's really hard to say, but it normally has to do with your physicality and with how you're training and with how you are kind of carrying yourself throughout your normal day-to-day life. It's really hard for me to pinpoint. Like I said, it's very finicky. There's a lot of small ingredients that all get added up to make somebody peak properly. But my first rule would be to take a look at your training program and see what you guys are doing throughout the season and the off-season, just to see if that might be the biggest culprit. It normally is. All right, so if you want to send me an email back about that, dude, feel free to send me back an email. But we're going to talk about this here. So Elijah has a lot of common issues that are going on, and we're going to start in the back of the circle and try to point out a few things. So as Elijah, come on now. Let's see. Okay, as Elijah gets going here, you can see when he's starting his glide, great job of getting his shot put outside the circle. Now, hopefully everybody sees what that means. The shot put's on the other side of his neck. So if you drew a straight line down, it would land outside the circle, somewhere around there, right at the point of the cursor. That's what we want. We want to keep your center of mass and the shot behind your power leg. So as a right-handed thrower, behind Elijah's right knee. And what starts to happen is he gets ready to go into his glide. He does that high kick thingy, which, it is what it is. Some people do that, some people don't. Does a good job of kind of unseating, few little things going on here. The crisscross behind the other leg, I'm not a big fan of. If that's something that you do, that's okay, but I would try to fix that. But you start to see here, the big thing is what happens with his head and his shoulders as he kind of uses his left arm, his head, and his shoulders to catapult himself across that circle. He's also pushing off of the right toe. So right there is like 3 things. Okay? Boom. Now if he were to drop the shot put right here, he hit himself right on the leg. So it doesn't matter how low and how far outside the circle he's starting out. If he starts to glide and he stands up in the middle, he's shifting his weight in between his 2 feet. Remember, we want his weight to be behind that right leg. So some people are good enough athletes and like really super nimble and quick and explosive to just suck that right leg underneath them a little bit more and fix this. We're going to see what starts to happen. As your right foot lands right here, you do a good job. Right toe, left foot, nice and quick, one right after the other. But take a look what happened. Now if you drop that shot, you're hitting yourself in the knee. Your center of mass, your center of gravity is in between your feet, and you're starting to open up with that left arm. At this point, you can see you kind of drop your heel to the ground. See that? So we're going to have a really hard time of turning the knee and turning the toe and pushing your hips down the middle of the circle. You do a good job getting up on the toe and trying to twist, but you see right here what happens. Your hips are facing the camera, your foot's coming off the ground, and you can't push. So you're trying to shove that thing out there with your upper body. Your head's down. You kind of got that lightning bolt zigzag position here. You're not getting full extension, not getting the hips into the throw. You're driving down instead of up. You got this release going on right here. Now this is still a 41-foot throw. So it's obvious you're a big, strong dude, man, because you are just muscling this thing 41 feet. Here's what I would work on first and foremost. Okay, a couple quick things, and this is what I always go back to. I want to see you gliding and landing with your right foot in the front half of the circle. Take a piece of white athletic tape or some chalk and draw a line from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. That way you can designate front half, back half. Glide out of the back, land in the front. That's going to get you a lot closer to that toe board. It's going to help you to bring that right foot underneath you. Okay, the second thing I want you to do is I want you to have one of your teammates hold something in the back of the circle. So maybe it's a rope or a jump rope or a toe strap or a broom handle, a belt, anything. A piece of stretch tubing, elastic tubing, whatever you got lying around in your shed, you hold onto it with your left hand, they hold onto it outside the circle. This is going to prevent you from using your left arm and doing that double pump thing. See how you're driving that elbow back? So it's going to prevent that from happening. The other thing I need you to do is to stay low in the middle. Don't do this thing with your head and shoulders where you're using your head and shoulders to glide backwards. Now, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of other stuff. You're driving off the toe in the back, right there. Instead of driving off the heel, we want you to drive off the heel. That's going to make it a little bit easier to get across the circle, to get full extension with your leg and use your full leg strength to get across that circle. Maybe you can turn the right foot a little bit more in the middle, not drop the heel. I mean, there's definitely some issues with this throw, but that's the order I want you to work with. Okay, so first thing is front half of the circle, back half of the circle. Second thing is to have a partner hold that rope outside of outside the circle, and you hold onto it with your left arm. Third thing is to stay low in the middle. If you can do those 3 things, those are 3 very big things. A lot of those big things are going to help correct some of the smaller things, okay? So here's today's lesson for the day. I know this is a long video, but here's the lesson for the day. Elijah's throwing 41 feet and change, 41 feet and a few inches with technique that has a lot of big issues to correct. This is not poking fun at him. This is not using him as a way to show, what not to do. This is not a slight at him in any way. What this goes to show you is imagine what happens when Elijah fixes this stuff. Think about that for a second. He's throwing 41 feet right now with a lot of big problems and a lot of big issues to work on, a lot of bad habits to fix. But he's throwing 41 feet and a few inches with this technique. Imagine what happens when his technique gets better. Imagine how far this guy starts to throw when his technique improves. 50 feet, you fix those 3 big things, and then send in another video in a couple months. You work all summer, you work during the fall to really improve upon this and to really make these 3 big corrections. And 50 feet as a junior next year is 100% doable. And I would be extremely confident if any of my throwers came to me throwing 41 feet with technique like this, I would be salivating and like foaming at the mouth, because I know once I fix these things, 50 foot's dropping like nothing. Easiest way to get to 50 feet. If you had perfect form and technique and you were throwing 41 feet, getting to 50 is going to be tough. But you're throwing 41 feet with technique that needs a lot of help. And you fix these things, my dude, 50 feet's right around the corner. All right? So that's sort of the life lesson of the day. Get some stuff to fix, dude, which is awesome. Not a bad thing at all. I would rather have a lot of things to fix, because that means I've got a lot more distance to come at the end of my throws.